Hey guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to today's video. My name is Rebecca, and if you're new here, I post videos all about beauty, luxury, lifestyle. So if you're into that kind of content, then definitely hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. And in today's video, I am actually reviewing a new product, well, giving my first impressions thoughts on it. And the product that I'm featuring is the Lunar Beauty Eclipse palette. This just released, I think, like a little over a week ago at this point. I just received it in the mail a couple days ago. So I'm going to give you a little tutorial on this eye look and give you my first impressions thoughts. And without further ado, let's just jump into the video. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is give you some background information on this palette. I do want to note that Manny, in his reveal video, did mention that this is part of Lunar Beauty's permanent line. So you don't have to stress, this is permanent for Lunar Beauty, at least for now. He did say that it was not going to be a limited edition release, so that's good. I really appreciate when a brand, you know, keeps things around. It seems like so many brands tend to do the limited edition thing, which I understand from a business standpoint. It creates more hype, it creates more of that need to get it right away. But I do appreciate when a brand keeps things around, because let's say you buy this palette and you end up loving it and you end up going through it. Well, down the road you can still get it. Whereas when everything is limited edition, it's like you fall in love with the product, but down the road you won't be able to get it again. So there's definitely pluses and minuses to making things limited edition. But anyway, besides the point, this is going to be part of the permanent line. It does retail for $48 US, and it does contain 15 different shades. There are a mix of shimmers and mattes. There are some like transition-y shades, some more wearable shimmers, as well as some blue and deeper fun colors. So I do want to go ahead and insert swatches. I don't normally insert swatches in my first impressions or review videos because I just feel like swatches really don't tell you anything about a palette, but I decided I will go ahead and do that in this video. So I'll go ahead and insert that now. Alright, so here are these swatches. I know they're not the best. I do want to note that most of these I did build up about 2 times. There was a couple that I didn't have to do that, but it's like I said, swatches, take them with a grain of salt. So anyway, the first shade didn't really show up too well on my skin tone, and that is the shade Flare. Then we have the shade Adamantium. That's that like silvery shade. Then we have Meteor, which is stunning. I really want to use this at some point. Then we have Gold Dust, another really pretty shade. Then we have Desert Sky, which is the metallic featured on my lid today. Then we have Dusk, Rose Thorn, Sandstorm, Summer Sky, Earthbender, Starry-Eyed, Smoke, Deep Sea, Lagoon, and Midnight Sky. I was running out of arm here. So that is all of these swatches of this Eternal Eclipse palette. So as you can see, you saw all the shades in the swatches. Like I said, swatches to me are not really the true tell of a palette. What really the true tell is how it performs. You're not ever going to use this as just a swatch on your arm, so that's why swatches don't really mean anything. It's just a way of showing you the colors on skin, and maybe it will help you decide seeing them on my skin tone in case you are similar or even different and you want to see how the shades show up. Now, the one thing I will say about this palette is that this to me is the lightest shade in the palette. Personally, I think for my skin tone, of course everybody is different, I would have liked one more lighter shade than that, just to have as a lighter transition. In the tutorial you will see that shade does show up pretty dark on me, I feel like. It's not dark like this, but on my skin tone, which is very fair, it does show up it shows up. That's basically what I'm trying to say. It's not a very light transition shade. So that is one thing that I would change about this palette for me personally. But of course, you know, every palette can't have everything, especially when there's only 15 shades. You know, you get like a 30 pan palette, then yeah, you expect to have a wide range of options. But I do think Manny did a pretty good job on including enough transition shades for, you know, a wide range of people. And then you also have like your lighter cool tone shade, your deeper blue. You know, you have some options on building really fun looks with this. So overall, I think the layout of the palette is very nice. I like the colors that were included. I think that you can utilize all of these shades together. I don't really think there's much missing other than that lighter transition shade, like I said, but that is kind of just a personal preference for me. You know, not everybody needs that really light transition shade. Some people are fine with it, and my look turned out fine just by having that. So it's not like it was a critical need for me either. So really that is all I have to say about this palette for like this initial first impressions. So now let's jump into the tutorial. Alright, so we're going to jump into this first impressions tutorial using the Lunar Beauty Eternal Eclipse palette. This is the packaging, the outer packaging that it came in. It's glaring a bit, but it's so beautiful. It honestly looks like the Northern Lights, like that's kind of how it looks to me, and it's just really, really pretty. If I was into like keeping the packaging, I probably would keep this one just because it is really pretty, but I'm just going to throw it away. I don't usually keep the boxes. If I can get it open. Then the actual palette's packaging is stunning. This is actually risen a bit and it is gorgeous. Alright, and then the inside of the palette, it does have a very nice big mirror, and it comes with like a protective slip. And then without blinding you, this is what the inside of the palette looks like. You do have your more like transition-y wearable shades, the blues, and then some shimmers that can be more everyday. Now, I really want to play with the blues, but I do have an eye appointment today, so I don't want to do any kind of crazy look. So I am going to stick to more of the neutrals in the palette, and then I'll probably do another video featuring the blues because I do want to see how these perform. Now, this is a first impressions. I have not tried this palette yet. However, I have tried Lunar Beauty's, what is it called? The Halloween one that he came out with last year, and I've also tried Life's a Drag. I have sold Life's a Drag probably a couple years ago at this point. I just didn't really get a lot of use out of it. Wasn't my favorite. The Halloween one is phenomenal. I have no issues with it whatsoever. So I have high hopes for this one. I think it's going to be pretty good. So first things first, I also realized that there's not really a good setting shade in this palette, so I'm going to go ahead and grab a different powder to set the concealer down on my lid. Alright, so I just grabbed my Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk powder foundation, and then I'm going to take my Laura Mercier Flawless Fusion concealer like I usually do. Alright, so I've set my lids down with the concealer. Now I'm just going to go ahead and set it with the powder. This is what I always do when it comes to setting down. Whenever I am doing eyeshadow looks, I always use concealer as my base. I don't even own an eye primer anymore. So of course, even in a first impressions, I want to do exactly what I always do to test the performance, because obviously, if I'm going to do my makeup, I'm going to use this method. So I want to test the palette with my normal method. Because if it doesn't work using my normal method, then obviously it's just not going to work for me personally, because that's how I like to do things. So eyes are primed and set down. Now we can finally jump into this bad boy. So the first shade, I think this can bend. I hate doing this, but it can bend backwards. So the first shade I'm going to go in with is this shade Dusk. It is the lightest transition shade in this palette. So I'm going to go ahead and take that on a fluffy crease brush. This is the Sigma E40, one of my favorite brushes. I'm just going to tap into that. There is kick up in the pan, just to be aware. I don't personally mind kick up, but I know some people do. So there is some kick up to be aware of. I'm just going to tap the brush a little bit, and then we're going to build this into the crease. As you can see right away, there is quite a bit of color payoff, so that's a good sign. And that's how my experience was with his other Halloween themed palette as well. The color payoff was very intense very quickly, so just keep that in mind. You know, and I tapped my brush, so this is with me tapping the brush as well. So again, just keep that in mind. I personally like when a palette is pigmented, but you do have to use it a little differently than you normally would if it was less pigmented, just because it's a lot easier to build up than it is to take away. So of course, when you have a palette that is very pigmented, you want to go in little by little and build it up as best you can, and you have to be careful. So I'm just dipping into that shade again and doing the same thing on the other eye. Again, really nice color payoff. I think I had less on my brush when I went in on that side, so I'm just going to add a tiny bit more just to kind of even it out. Alright, so that is what the crease is looking like so far. Again, very good color pigmentation. It's showing up very well. So what I want to do is jump down to the lower lash line really quick. If you've watched some of my other more recent tutorials, I've been liking doing this method lately where I jump from top to bottom just to like kind of keep everything connected and just kind of keep the overall shape of the look throughout my doing it. Because sometimes when you don't do the lower lash line until the end, the look can look kind of crazy. So that's why, you know, this is just a different technique. All right, you can see that there is some on the lower lash line. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and deepen up the outer portion, and I'm going to go in with Earthbender, which is this deep shade. And I'm going to go in lightly because I have a feeling this is going to be pretty pigmented. So I want to just make sure that I'm going in gently at first. I am stamping this into the outer corner, and then I drag it into the crease. This is super pigmented. I mean, I've barely done anything and you can totally see the color. That definitely created some depth. As you can see, the difference between the two sides. So I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side. So far, I mean, these are blending pretty nicely. I'm not having any troubles whatsoever. So far I know I haven't really said much, but there's really not much to say. I mean, I've only used 2 shades up to this point, so I mean, and they're working out fine. right, lower lash line. I think I need to add just maybe a little bit more on this side. All right, and now I'm gonna go in with my shimmer shade really quick so that I can work on blending that into the look. And I have to say, this Meteor shade looks stunning, but I think I'm gonna go in with Desert Sky since it kind of fits the brownie tones a little bit more. First, I'm gonna try it on a brush just to see what happens. I normally don't use shimmers with a brush, so. I mean, it's definitely going on there with the brush, so that is good. I bet you with the finger it would be even more intense, just because usually applying shimmers with a finger does make it a little bit more intense. But I'm liking how it's looking with the brush. Usually I get pretty impressed with a shimmer that can apply well with the brush. There's not many that I can think of in my collection that truly apply well with the brush. So this gets an A+ for me because it's applying no problem with the brush. Now, really quick, I want to take that original Sigma E40 and that original Dusk shade that we used, and I'm just going to lightly buff around the edges just to kind of blend the edges since I added that darker shade and we've added the shimmer. All right. So far, so good. Now, what I want to do, is take a little bit of this Flare shade, which is light, because this is looking pretty dark at the moment. I want to take that Flare shade, and I'm just going to take a little bit of it on a brush, and I'm going to just very carefully add it to the center of the lid. And you want to try to stay looking straight on because you want it to be in the center of the eye. So, that's what I'm doing. I don't know how well it applied with the brush. I'll try it again on the other eye, and then I might tap some on with my finger. I think it definitely did add some, but I'm also just going to take some on my pinky here, and I'll go ahead and tap that. All right, so that definitely added more. And if you can see, it just adds a little bit more lightness to the eye and kind of brings some light right to the center. I've really been liking that technique of adding a lighter shimmer shade to the center points of the look when I'm not doing it too dramatically, just a tiny bit to really add just a little bit more light. Now, in my opinion, none of these shades are super great for the inner corner and the brow bone, but I think what I might do is take that Flare shade that I just put into the center of the eye. I'm going to use that to put in the inner corners. So yeah, that looks nice. Alright, so yeah, that actually looks nice in the inner corner, and I think I'll go ahead and add some to the brow bone as well. I think it looks pretty nice. I don't really want to jump into another palette. I would like to create the look from this palette only. Alright, so I think that's pretty much where I'm going to leave the shadow. Of course, it's all going to look a little bit more put together when I add my liner and mascara and all that. So if you give me 2 seconds, I'm going to pop back on and we will kind of wrap up my thoughts on this palette. Alright guys, so this is the completed makeup look. So far for the first impressions, I really like how this came out. I know this is just a very like everyday type of look, but like I mentioned, I do have an eye appointment today, so I didn't want to do anything too crazy. But as far as the shades that I used, which I did end up using, I used only 4 shades. Out of those 4, I really do think they performed well. It was not difficult to do. If I wasn't filming this, I bet you I could have done this look in like 10 minutes tops. If that even. I mean, it was 4 shades. It really wasn't anything too crazy. I think that this palette, I mean, the shimmers really performed well with the brush, which, like I said in the tutorial portion, that is pretty impressive because most shimmers in my collection I have to use with my finger. I can only think of a couple others, such as like the Dominique Cosmetics and the Jeffree Star mini like nude palette. Those I can apply very well with the brush as well, but otherwise I can't really think of any of other shadows that are metallic that I can apply with a brush. So that is really good news for this palette. And I do want to get into the deeper shades and the blues at some point. Of course, you know, I want to play with the palette before I can really give like a full-blown yes, I recommend it. But for the shades that I did use, I really did enjoy them. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and this first impressions. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe down below so you don't miss any future videos. I will definitely be trying to do a second look using this palette, so if you want to see that, go ahead and leave me a comment letting me know that you want to see it, because I want to put out content that you guys enjoy. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.